Welcome in to NFL Week 6, the Sunday night recap here on the Action Network podcast. Brendan Glasheen joined by Brandon Anderson, one of our NFL contributors here at the Action Network, as well as our Director of Research and Media, Evan Abrams. Nice earlier start for our show tonight as opposed to last Sunday into Monday morning. But big day, 6 1 o'clock games, not a big slate. A lot of teams on the bye week. We had the Jaguars and Bears play in the London game this morning. Favorites cleaned up today, 9-3-1 against the spread, 11-2 straight up. We just saw the ending of Cincinnati and the Giants. Not a whole lot there to take away. I mean, the Bengals get a win. Good for them to go to 2-4. The Giants are now 2-4 as well. But here we are. We'll work our way through the slate of games and then work our way as well to the Monday Night Football game that takes place tomorrow between the Bills and the Jets. A lot of line movement there since the end of last week. And then we'll get the hot read from Brandon Anderson and we'll get the heck out of here. So thanks for being here as well on YouTube, the Action Network YouTube channel. We are live on YouTube, and those of you listening on the Action Network podcast, wherever you listen to your podcast. So the Bengals get there 17-7. Cincinnati covers 3.5. Line closed at 4.5. Total came down as well to 45.5. Whatever number you got on the under, it got there. Quick thoughts from either of you, Brandon. Bengals, you had the Bengals as your hot read going back last week, and is one of your best bets. They got there. Chase Brown.
Yeah, had it all the way. I wore the favorites shirt tonight to back our sister podcast, and the favorites dominating all day. Brandon, you texted me before this game. How you feeling about this one? Felt good going in, didn't go at all like I thought. I'll take the win. Did not deserve this one. I deserve the backdoor cover, if anything. But you know what? We got on a couple other ones today. Terrible game. Not much to say there. Happy to get the bet over the line.
Evan Abrams, thoughts quickly on this one?
Yeah, I don't know if there's really much to say except maybe looking ahead to next week. You started with the Burrow run and for the touchdown, which is the longest in Bengals history, and you said to yourself, this one's going to be weird. And when you meant weird, there was just nothing. There was no points, nothing to watch. No, honestly, the defense of the Giants probably stuck out to me more than anything in this game. Just in the fact that, like, week to week, they will be the reason, no matter how Daniel Jones plays, they will be in most games. And they're missing Thibodeau. They're missing pieces, and still Dexter Lawrence, etc., looking incredible. So they're probably the story I would look at. The other thought process going forward as well. Next week, I want to put a line into this. Bengals at Browns. Burrow's struggled with Cleveland. I believe he's like 1-5 straight up in that game. And dogs in AFC North, 45-30 since 2018. So it's a different Cleveland team, but they're probably the right side after what we've seen from Cincinnati. Aside from that, we get Aaron. We'll talk about it later. We get Rodgers and the Jets at home tomorrow night as home dogs. And the Giants and Jets now 4-30 straight up in primetime night games since 2019. So obviously Rodgers got to win against New England earlier in the season, but we'll see if they can keep that going or not.
I feel pressure to give out stats when I have Evan's on a pod with me, because I just go, I better get this right. But the broadcast showed it on NBC, and the word you used, weird, Tirico and Collinsworth were even going back and forth. This has been a weird game, but only the second win in Bengals history when they scored 10 points or fewer. Did you guys see that on the broadcast
but then
tonight?
Like the very next play after that, they scored a touchdown to get us over the line. So it's not a stat anymore.
Right. Good point.
When did the Bengals ever have a defense good enough to hold the team under 10 points and win? So
fair enough.
When I saw it, I said to myself, wow. And then I was like, wait a second, can I name a Bengals defender ever? So
yeah, to Evan, you mentioned the Bengals at Browns next week. Like, I've been playing against the Browns every chance I can. So I, of course, circled that one when I was on the Bengals here. I thought about that as a hot read, but to add to your caution that you're saying here, Cincinnati has not won in Cleveland since 2017.
Wow.
And the Browns have actually won 9 of the last 12, even though this has been a Bengals era in Ohio football. So be careful with that one. That could be a bit of a trap spot. We'll see. Definitely Cincinnati looked a lot less convincing tonight. And you're right. The Giants' defensive front really was the best unit in the game. The Bengals, I think, were lucky to get over We're all very lucky. Thank you to Chase Brown for not going down at the 2-yard line. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Shane Bowen did a great job. Defensive coordinator for the Giants. Brian Burns was good too. Worthy acquisition, despite their ineptitude elsewhere. Bengals open 4.5 into the line for this
Definitely
week.
Want that hook.
Minus 4.5 going to
the hook.
Yeah. Okay, there you go. There's your Sunday night recap, because why spend more time on a 17-7 game? Washington, Baltimore, Jaden Daniels against Lamar Jackson. Jaden Daniels, the next big thing we discussed on this very podcast last Sunday, trying to wrap our heads before Saints and Chiefs about who might be the MVP of the league this year. And Jaden Daniels was part of our discussion, because you can't ignore the numbers. But Brandon Anderson, Baltimore does get there 30-23. They cover the 6.5. If you got 7 on Washington, you did push. Total does go over the closing number of 50.5.
Yeah, the line, the total, we're pretty much dead on here. We did get a very public over, I think, on this one hit. We got a late Washington field goal, and then Baltimore ran the clock out to control the game at the end. It was close, but not close the whole way, right? Like that sort of felt like the theme of Sunday. If we're being honest, like, stick around. We got more recap for you. We got hot reads, but it wasn't the best day of football. Like, not a lot of great games today. When all the favorites win and cover, like, that's how it's going to go. You're not going to get a lot of witching hour action for the day. 30-23 didn't really feel that way in real time. And you look at the stats kind of reflect that. Baltimore had almost 500 yards of offense. Washington barely over 300. Baltimore averaged 2 more yards per play, 10 more first downs. They won this game on late down conversion, and really their run defense shut down Washington too. I thought Washington's passing offense, I thought Daniels actually was fine, pretty good, better than I thought he would be here on the road against a tough defense. No turnovers, no big mistakes. He didn't look like he had looked against, whoever the terrible defense he's been playing lately. That's fine. No big mistakes for a rookie and a huge game on the road, a rivalry spot here. I think I actually feel better about Washington after this one. This was a big test. We thought Cleveland last week would be a big test for them. I feel like Washington's starting to prove themselves a little bit. As far as Baltimore, obviously just getting the job done again. We, of course, I have to mention this. In 5 weeks here, 2 times I have played on our Best Bets pod. Derrick Henry, Escalator, 100 rushing yards and 2 scores. It's what happens when the Ravens win. Both times I played, we missed. The other 3 weeks in between, including this game, he hit the parlay. It's the 3rd time Henry's had 100 rushing yards and 2 scores in 4 Ravens wins. So just keep it in mind. If you like the Ravens to win, whether I tell you to play it or not, apparently just play the thing, because he keeps doing that. I think Derrick Henry is starting to become the story here. I know Lamar Jackson, he was great on late downs, I think helped win this game for them. Henry's at least 1 rushing touchdown every game for the Ravens. He's at 9 touchdowns now in 6 games. That is a 25.5 touchdown pace. That's like Sean Alexander, LaDainian Tomlinson number of touchdowns. We don't have dudes do that anymore. He is the clear offensive player of the year leader. I don't think you can bet it as short as it is. I think Derrick Henry's coming for the MVP conversation. I don't think Lamar Jackson can go back to back without the playoff resume. If Baltimore keeps winning this way, winning smash mouth, Henry getting in the end zone over and over again, I'm not saying he's going to win it. I'm not even saying you should bet it, but I promise you he's going to be, quote, in the conversation. I think we're going to have to do the running back thing again. I think it's him. Evan, what do you think?
Only thing I was going to mention, now that I literally was thinking about it as you were saying it, and these awards, and you say this all the time when you're gambling on it, and it's really, really true. It's a narrative award. They all are, because it's just how that thing works. Genty for the Heisman, Henry for the MVP, 2 running backs, change the game conversation. Just interesting that they're both just dominating up the scales. Everyone's kind of having that conversation. It just came to my mind.
Derrick Henry 60-1 right now to win MVP in the National Football League. I mean, if we're going to do it with McCaffrey,
he was 150
we got to do it with Henry,
on the round
right?
table. We did a few weeks ago when we had mentioned it as well. So those have come down drastically.
Yep. And I'm not seeing an offensive player of the year market pop right now. Lamar Jackson is tied with CJ Stroud for 2nd in MVP odds at plus 550. So to Brandon's point, Lamar might steal some of the shine because he's the head of the snake, but keep an eye out for Henry and those odds shifting.
And to Evan's point here, I just pulled it up on one of the major books. The Henry Genty parlay, if you want to go both of them, 167 to 1 right now. If you want to have a little fun on the running back parlay.
Okay, very good. Lions throttle the Cowboys 47-9. Brandon gave out Lions -3 on the Best Bets pod. That got there. Line did close at 3.5. There were some 4s out there, over 52.5. You almost could have got the over by itself with the Lions. Evan, anything to comment here on? Is this about Detroit? I think it's about Detroit more so than Dallas, but the Dallas Cowboys shined at home like last year is gone. It's over.
Let's just say this. When I was trying to rank the afternoon games, it was very difficult because there wasn't a close one. Nothing was good. Everything was terrible. So this was the best of the worst. But honestly, the story of the game looking forward is Aiden Hutchinson. Like his domination and what he does for Detroit's defense and their line and the pressure and getting Goff back the ball and the fact that broken tibia, his season is over. And we hope he comes back healthy and he's, the same player as he was, because holy mackerel, he was dominant, and he was, getting hurt while doing his job and sacking the quarterback to extend his lead in the sack total is just a crappy way to end his season. But to be fair, I think that is the topic in this one. Dak had a quote earlier in the week, and I don't even think it came out of his mouth when he was saying it, because he was like, we can't lose this game. We can't drop another home game. And then this is what happens. That was really the first thing that came to mind when I started watching this onslaught was, imagine and you find out later it's Jerry Jones's birthday. What an unbelievable, I don't even have words to talk about this, because the stats over and over, worst loss since 1988. You can go on and on and on. And the halftime, I believe it was 110-35, their last 4 home games in the first half. So to me, the stats will, I can go on and on here, but the story moving forward's got to be the loss of Hutchinson. And then you look at the fact that they play the Vikings next week. Probably not the team you would like to lose Hutchinson for. Big division, battle, your first game having to go on without them. It is, I will say this. So Goff and Campbell together, they are 1.5-point underdogs right now. They're 21-9 against the spread as dogs, 9-1 ATS in their last 10. I right now it looks like it has 80% of the tickets and 85% of the money in early markets on the Lions. I don't expect that to change, and I would probably see a line move at some point. But to me, that's probably the most interesting thing here. David Montgomery scores again. David Montgomery, Derrick Henry, Kyron Williams score every damn week. So that to me is an interesting note in itself. Let's see. Anything else here? Probably not. I really don't think. I mean, you can go. Detroit scored 89 points over the last 2 games. They've looked absolutely dominant. I think that's why also the Hutchinson injury is the story, because Detroit just looks so good.
And we discussed.
Yeah, I think the Hutchinson injury might be the story of the day, to be totally honest. As good as Detroit looks, as much as a Super Bowl contender as they are playing, he is a monster loss. There are not many bigger losses a single player on a defense in the NFL would represent, to be totally honest. No exaggeration. He was the #1 edge rusher in PFF grade, 95 pass rush grade on the season, league leading sack leader. He was the defensive player of the year favorite. So that race gets blown back wide open. Before the season, we took the 4-man near favorites bet on that, and Hutchinson was number 6. We took everyone but him and Max Crosby. So a little bit of unearned life perhaps on that bet. TJ Watt had a big day. Lots of other names will be out there for that one. For Detroit, in my roster matrix rankings, this really leaves them cratered at edge rush. They don't have anybody left. They've got Josh Paschal, PFF grade of 66, edge rush. Marcus Davenport barely cracks the top 100. There's only 64 starters, so not top 100 is not great. James Houston's been good before, only 17 snaps. He's not healthy. He's not playing well. This one guy drops Detroit for me in my rankings from 15th. So fine. League average, offense is good enough, win the Super Bowl, to 23rd. That's bottom 10. That is a huge drop for a Super Bowl contender. This is the sort of thing that will resonate every week all the way through to the Super Bowl, which I think Detroit has a much less chance of getting there. I think I saw Carlton Davis got injured late also, top corner for Detroit. I'm not sure if that was serious or not, but definitely not good names for Detroit. So they just don't have a lot of pass rush, and then you lose maybe your top corner as well. That's not a great combo, not a good spot for the team.
I was going to say this. I know a certain pass rusher who doesn't have an agent right now, who might have some free time and be interested in looking at Detroit. Just a thought.
Okay. Dallas on the bye, they get San Francisco next, and the Niners play Kansas City this coming Sunday. So very interesting. Niners are home to both Kansas City and Dallas in consecutive weeks.
Dallas, by the way, last 7 games dating back to the playoff loss when they got eliminated, has now allowed 30.9 points a game. They gave up 48, 44, and 47 to Love, Carr, and Goff-led offenses. It's not going well.
Yikes.
So good luck with San Francisco.
One question, though, like McCarthy's job's not in any type of jeopardy, right? Like, is that like a dumb... I mean, listen, Dallas is the second team in the last decade to enter a bye after a loss of 38 plus at home. I mean, this is a long time for them to think about what has happened over the last few weeks.
He is fortunate that Philadelphia still can't get their crap together.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's
well,
fair.
and I feel like, too, if you were going to make a change, the obvious change that you would make without bringing in like Belichick or some outside name, you probably go to Mike Zimmer. As much good as he's been in the past, hard to go to Mike Zimmer when he just gave up another touchdown while you were thinking about promoting him to the head coaching job. So I don't know, maybe the defense being so bad here, maybe, I don't know, the offense wasn't any better. They couldn't score either. So I don't know what you do in Dallas. It's not looking great, especially with Washington playing so well in the division too.
The irony too is Kellen Moore, the former OC, is in Philadelphia and off a bye week with your two top receivers back. It's not going well. All right, let's go to the one big stat courtesy of Evan Abrams.
Yeah, I'm going to have to do 2 because they're both insane. Road favorites this week are now 8-0 straight up, 8-0 against the spread. Obviously, Jets Bills tomorrow night will close it out one way or the other. If the Bills win and cover, this would be the most road fave covers since the merger in a single week. So craziness there. And then the other one, it's going around everywhere in terms of how well the NFC North's doing this so far this season. But I put like an ATS spin on it in the fact that the NFC North combined is 18-4 against the spread this season, 82% entering week 7. That is the best mark for any division through 6 weeks in the wild card era since 1990. So insanity. I believe I just saw their combined margin is like 290 or 200 something, and the next closest is like plus 25. So right now, nobody is even close. But next week, Lions, Vikings. So someone's got to cover or not. So we'll see.
Tampa Bay and New Orleans NFC South offense. Typically, this was like a Brandon Anderson best bets, take the under on one of these kind of games. 51-27. Tampa throttles Spencer Rattler and the New Orleans Saints. 51-27. No Derek Carr, Rattler in at quarterback. First half, Saints were hanging in there, scoring points, and then they couldn't score in the second half. Bucks get there -3.5. Total goes over, Brandon.
Yeah, I gotta be honest. I had this as an under in my notes all week long, and I kept staring at it, and I wanted it, but for some reason that I don't really have an explanation for, both these teams' first half overs have kept hitting all season. I was like, well, I don't know what's happening, but I guess I better avoid it. And man, 51 points in the first half. We hit the game over just in the first half. We had a fumble return touchdown. We had a punt return touchdown. Like these are luck ranking unders stats screaming out to you from the future as they get to these. We had 1, 2, 3 interceptions, 1, 2, 3 field goals, touchdown to open the later in the second quarter, 3 touchdowns in a row, like all in the first half. That all happened. Then we get to halftime. The Saints don't score in the second half. Saints actually 51-27. The 51 was representative. The 27 wasn't so much. Their touchdowns came on a punt return and on a 10-yard pass after interception. So Spencer Rattler, not looking so good. Baker went full Jameis in this one. The full YOLO from Baker, 325 yards, 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. My man, just spraying it all over the place, putting up the numbers. Tampa Bay, this offense led by Liam Cohen, their new offense coordinator. They lose Dave Canales, and that was the big hype. Some of us who were on Panthers Island were like, "Oh, Dave Canales moved the offense over there." Turns out they might have improved the offense. Liam Cohen, the new offense coordinator, the real deal. 8.2 yards per play for an entire game on a good Saints defense. Missing a few guys, but a pretty good defense. Dennis Allen, defense that knows them pretty well. Almost 600 yards of offense in this game for the Buccaneers. Tampa Bay, 4-2. They look like the real deal. They play Monday night at home. Remember, I'll say this sensitively, at home, coming home after a really tough week for Tampa Bay. An emotional spot Monday night against Baltimore. Circle that one. We'll get to it next week. I like the Buccaneers early. That could be one of those big emotional home, well-timed wins. The Buccaneers are starting to look pretty real. Saints have lost 4 in a row, not so much for them.
Buccaneers 4.5-point dog as of right now, but seeing their history too, way they hung in there with the Lions in the NFC playoff game, the Eagles game at the end of last year, they have got up for these kinds of spots. Now, there was a Monday night game way back against Philadelphia last year, early in the year, where they kind of no-showed. But Todd Bowles getting the hell out of the way, letting the new offensive minds come in, and he's handling his biz on the defensive end, at least in the second half he did. Other NFC South game that had points, Atlanta defeats Carolina 38-20. Atlanta covers the inside the touchdown line at 6.5. Total goes over, Evan, 45.5 points.
My first note on this game is, how is this a 4:00 game?
Yeah,
I thought
honestly that also.
That was honestly what I asked myself all week when I was prepping and looking at notes, and I went in order and I got to this one. I was like, 4:00. Interesting. Okay. But talking about the game itself, the thing I look at, and it's just the starts for Carolina. Obviously, Carolina in the second half completely lost their way, but it is worth noting Bryce Young was 5-13 first half ATS in his career. He had lost his last 10 starts first half ATS before they pulled the plug. Dalton has scored 17, 7, 14, 21, and 13 in his first halves. All of his starts, I believe, for Carolina has gone over the total as well. I believe going over by almost 15 points per game. So you're just getting much better offense. You're in more of the games. It at least comes down to, let's call it 5 plays in the game instead of just it not having a chance at all to win. So I do think Carolina is much improved with Andy. The one Andy stat that really gives me pause, though, as well as he's playing in the first half, since 2021, he is 3-10 second half ATS. So he does tend to turn into a pumpkin. And that is probably what's stopping Carolina from, let's call it, covering spreads at all, since I think they're 1-7 in their last 8 games ATS, with their only cover being the dead cat bounce, switching from Bryce Young to Dalton against the Raiders. And then after that, you just got Carolina again. Looking at the game itself, Deontay Johnson, a person who didn't score touchdowns for almost 15 to 17 straight weeks or so, now is a touchdown machine, scoring 3 of the last 4 and 8 of his last 13. He seems like he is an absolute number 1 target when it comes to Andy, and they feel really good with each other. So that feels like it keeps hitting every week. Carolina's rush defense was actually the problem and probably kept them from winning this game. Atlanta goes 198 on 38 carries. I think both of the Bijan and Algier get close to 100 each. In terms of the over, which I mentioned, so Andy, I told you 5-0 to the over in those games. Cousins over in 3 straight starts. He's 86-68 to the over in his career. He's the 4th most profitable quarterback to the over in our database last 20 years. So everything that Kirk Cousins brings to the table, whether it's his 5 touchdowns or 5 interceptions or however he brings that to the table, usually leads to points. So we've been seeing that lately. And I'll give you one for next week. So Seattle is now at Atlanta in their next game. This one really surprises me, so I thought it was worth bringing up. So road teams, MST and PST, so West Coast road teams, going east, 82, 48, and 4. 63% against the spread since 2019. There has been no lag for most of these teams. So this would tell you Seattle off the losses, off that San Francisco extra rest. It's an interesting bet to me.
Seattle catching 2.5 plus 136 on the money line. Big total, 49.5 points in that game too. Heading to Philadelphia, we mentioned the Eagles earlier. They scrape by 20-16, Brandon. The Browns do cover plus 8.5. The total goes under 42.5. We were also texting about the horrid first half close. One of your best bets was the Eagles on the first half line. They got A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith off a bye, fix everything. Let's get our crap together. And they can't do it. They can't do it.
They can. They dropped to 0-5 first half ATS. We did know that coming in that this was going to have to be their first cover, but a brutal beat. So just got to walk us through that. If you bet this one and lost, shame on us for being on the wrong side. This is just an awful beat. So it's 10-3, 31-yard line. Eagles have the ball up 7, 30 seconds till the half. It's third down. Okay. You're the Eagles. It's 3rd and 1. Tush push. It's the only play you're good at. Just run everyone up the middle, get a first down. You get it to halftime. You get the field goal on a short field, probably. You might get a touchdown still. Instead, Jalen Hurts eats a long sack. So they set up for the long field goal. I'm going, no, just punt the ball away. Just punt it away. You've been controlling the half. Of course, they try the 57-yarder. Of course, the Giants play from last week, which was, as pointed out, was actually the Myles Garrett play from a year ago. They do the thing where the one guy pushes the center down and Myles Garrett leaps over the gap, which apparently is legal under the current rules. We'll see. I'm not sure it will be too much longer if we keep doing this. Block field goal, return for the touchdown, 10-10, killing us on the first half spread. That ends up basically covering the game spread at the end of the day as well. So one of the few underdog covers here. Look, I want to come away just hating on the Eagles, because how do you barely come over the line against the Browns off the bye week? The truth is, it's not as ugly as it looked for the Eagles on the underlying numbers. A lot of pretty good stuff happening. What's not great is Jalen Hurts still. I just don't think Jalen Hurts looks comfortable. He, especially on late downs, Philadelphia moved the ball, did what they needed on early downs pretty well. He had a negative 0.7 EPA on late down passes, only one successful play as a passer on late downs. That's why this wasn't a dominant Eagles win. And he just hasn't looked right in that Kellen Moore offense. You got to be able to do better coming out of the bye week with all the guys back. Dallas Goedert did leave hurt here, but let's be honest. You still got Saquon, the receivers are back. The line is healthy. I don't know. I can't get too down on the Eagles after this one, given the numbers. But, man, it's the Browns. You got to do better against that. Deshaun Watson still starting, guys. Just in case you're wondering, we asked again, he's still starting. The Browns at one point were up to 26 straight failed third downs with Deshaun Watson on the field. That streak is over, but unfortunately, the streak with Watson still playing football is not. I guess we got to keep doing it and probably just keep betting against him until they finally turn to Jameis or God knows what other quarterback they come up with there.
Bill Belichick, Matt Patricia, Mike Lombardi, they'll tell you they're the ones that invented the leap over the line and block the kick.
Bill Belichick will tell you he invented everything. So that's
if you heard any of the audio from their Underdog Fantasy, which great company, by the way, no shade. It's just that's their platform. And and then Myles Garrett did it today. Belichick, Patricia took credit for what happened with the Giants last week. But yeah, not a great ending for the first half. Eagles still have work to do.
Can we talk about Sirianni chirping with fans after not
that too,
and barely beating the Browns at this point? If you're going to chirp with fans, at least cover the spread.
Ever since I texted Brandon, I go, how did this team with this head coach? Maybe it's because of Shane Steichen, right? At the end of the day, when we look back on it, but how did this team make a Super Bowl? Talented as hell. Okay, so the Browns do cover. If you took Cleveland, good for you. Rapid fire. We'll work through these this next bit of games. Indianapolis, Tennessee, Brandon, 2017. Indy gets there as a winner. They were an underdog when this one closed. Plus 2.5. Total does go under 41.5 points.
Yeah, unfortunately, our most competitive game of the day, maybe, but just not good football. So I'm not going to say anything about all the bad Will Levis, bad Calvin Ridley, bad Trey Sermon. You can look at the numbers yourself. It's all terrible. Depending on the London line that your book had for you, whether which team came out as the favorite at the end. The Colts are effectively the only real underdog to win in week 6 so far. Like they were 2.5-point underdogs because the quarterback is out. I don't know. Is the quarterback out? Anthony Richardson, you're healthy. Yeah, you know what? Hey, take another week, big guy. We got Joe Flacco out here actually throwing passes to our receiver, who, by the way, Michael Pittman about to go on IR. He's like, oh, Joe's playing quarterback. Yeah, I'm feeling great. Put me in, coach. I'm ready to catch some passes this week. Colts are 3-3. They started 0-2. They host not Tua and the Dolphins next week. Then they go to Houston. They're in this thing. And do you bench Joe Flacco to go back to the quarterback that can't hit your receivers? I think they have a real problem on their hands that they weren't expecting here. So that, to me, is something to keep an eye on in Indy.
Speaking of Shane Steichen, yeah. I mean, Josh Downs and Flacco clearly have a connection. No Taylor again today, and it only took 20 points, but they got there. Pittsburgh and Vegas met in the 4:00 window. Steelers 32-13. Pittsburgh covers the short number of 3. Did close 3.5. Total does go over 36.5. Evan Abrams.
Yeah, I mean, I tried to talk myself into the fact that Aiden O'Connell is an improvement versus Gardner Minshew, but by the time the game ended and I looked at the box score and I looked at everything that had happened, it was even really tough to make that argument. So I think I probably just have to say that when you have none, you still have none. It just, they don't have the right quarterback in the room. It's not helping Antonio Pierce at all week to week. And I think this is just going to be the Raiders the rest of the year. You saw a really dejected Max Crosby at the end of the game in his press conference, just basically say it's up to the players because we're letting down the fans. And I think that's kind of what you're seeing out of this Raiders team week to week. I kind of hope Devontae gets out of there and they just figure out a way to give Trey Tucker and Brock Bowers and some of these younger players some more run and just try something different. I mean, they were talking about Shador and all these other things. You just need another quarterback in the room. So I don't know if there's much to say about the Raiders. On the Pittsburgh side, Justin Fields, 14 of 24, 145 yards, but he started the game 83 passing yards and 17 attempts. It's what you're going to get from Justin Fields week to week. But with Pittsburgh's defense, it really doesn't matter. And that's why you don't want Russell Wilson back there, because I feel like even though Fields does sometimes run backwards, fall on his head and fumble the ball, he doesn't do that as much as Russell Wilson would, because I think Fields listens to Tomlin, is buying into the system, and I'm not sure you're going to get that from Russ. So that's really the notes here. The one crazy part for the Raiders, they didn't target a wide receiver until 30 seconds left in the first half, and it was a guy named Alex Bachman. So there's just some real bad stuff going on there. But if you're going to look forward, you can't turn over the ball 3 times. Pittsburgh had no turnovers. Under Tomlin, when a +3 turnover margin, he's 23-1 straight up, 22-2 against the spread. You're just not going to beat Pittsburgh that way by giving them the ball and letting them hold the clock. And I'll give you 2 more. Stat that I'll use every single week because it just damn keeps working. When opponents score more than 20 points versus a Fields team, they're 22-0. Didn't happen today. So all 14 of Fields' wins have come with opponents scoring 20 points or less. That's just the way his teams have done it, with great defense between Chicago and Pittsburgh. And then looking ahead, this is just a fun trend that I've been tracking that I just want to use right now. So the Steelers are coming off this Raiders game. Teams after facing the Raiders in Vegas without a bye, so game to game, 11-22-1 against the spread, 0-2 this season. So, everyone understands coming back from Vegas isn't easy when you're going back to your job. So maybe NFL players are feeling the same.
Alex Bachman, an undrafted free agent out of Wake Forest. I
Nice,
didn't know who he was either. I was like, did this guy get drafted? I hope he did not. So yeah, someone named Alex Bachman. Good for you.
Just wait till we get to the Chargers Broncos games. If you're looking for receivers you never heard of before, we got them all in the AFC West right now.
Yeah. And you did tease that in Best Bets discussing that team. You were right about that. Stay tuned, by the way. We've got the hot read from Brandon, also Monday Night Football look on Buffalo and New York. That's coming up very shortly. Arizona, Green Bay was a 1:00 game. Packers 34. Now this game should have been in the 4:00 window instead of
nailed it.
Yeah.
The Atlanta and Carolina game, just for the Green Bay gravitational force that is the Packers. They delivered 34-13. They cover 5.5. Brandon, total goes over. Kyler Murray, there was some fight there, but Jordan Love looked pretty good. Jaden Reed, brief exit. Jordan Love sprinkling the love to everybody this game.
Yeah, Love has 12 touchdowns now, and he's only played 4 games. Remember, he missed those 2 games. So he's leading the league in touchdowns per game. That's 3 per game. That's a pace, even with the 2 games out, pace for 45 touchdowns. Unfortunately, he's also pacing for half that many interceptions right now because he's at least one of those every game too. I think Jordan Love is very much still alive in the MVP conversation. You keep throwing 3 touchdowns a game, 4 in this one, you're going to be in the mix there. Shredded a pretty bad Arizona defense. Depending on where you got the total, this was a total that kept getting bet down all week long. It was a really windy forecast, so money kept coming on the under. Started around like 50, 49.5, got down to 47.5. I think it closed at 47 some books. So a lot of push at the finish there. Unlucky if you went to the over on this one. It's 24-0 Packers second quarter, 24-10 at the half, so 34 points. Only got 13 in the second half. Packers missed a field goal second half. Arizona 3 last drives in a row end in a fumble. These defenses weren't doing a whole lot, but just got some bad luck there. Depending on where you got the number, you might have either gotten a good beat or bad beat. That to me was the only real story out of this one, but Packers look good.
Yeah, and look, you guys, I don't mean to speak for both of you, but I think most folks at Action have cautioned folks with the CJ Stroud MVP love. You've got Houston at Green Bay next week.
Ooh.
Packers short favorite. Jordan Love delivers in that spot. I'm curious how that fluctuates the MVP conversation. CJ Stroud, as I mentioned earlier, tied with Lamar Jackson for the second shortest odds for MVP. Jordan Love right now is 20-1 NFL MVP. Brandon Anderson, Evan Abrams, Chargers and Denver Broncos. Chargers go up 23-0, 16 unanswered from Denver. They make it sweaty down the stretch. If you had Chargers laying the short number, you did get there -2.5, the closing number. Total does go over 37.5 points.
Yeah, this was a first half versus second half type game because Denver scored all 16 of their points in the fourth quarter. Bo Nix looked better in the second half than he did the first half because he starts 2 of 7 for 14 yards and interception, 4 of 14, 27 yards interception. He was 1.9 yards per attempt early on. He finishes at 6.5. So heck of a second half and heck of a jump there. I mean, all around, Denver just feels like they're piecing it together week to week. Their run game is just atrocious. Nix was 6 of 61 on the ground, tied for the most carries on the team and had the most rushing yards. So if that doesn't tell you anything, they just, you fall behind, you change the way you play, but that's just not the way Bo Nix plays. So I think it was just, they looked good in the second half. I think it was good that they got back in the game. The thing that really just jumps out to me is the fact that Nix has now have 3 starts so far this season where he's been shut out in the first half. You can't win games without scoring a single point for the first 2 quarters and think you're going to come back. It's just not a type of league that's going to happen. And I think they lost Sertan in this game to, was it concussion, or he left the game at some point?
Concussion.
So that was definitely one thing to worry about going forward.
And Chargers they play Thursday too, by the way.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So definitely a bit, and looking at that line right now, I think Denver's -1. It's basically a pick 'em with a total under 37. So
short dog +1.5.
There you go. But Chargers 11 of 18 on third down in this game, pretty much won them the game. They controlled the clock, they kept the ball, and they held on. And that's probably the easiest way to look at it. The one interesting stat that I looked at for this one, Harbaugh on extended rest, now 15-5-1 straight up in his pro career with the 49ers and Chargers, does real good on the game plan. And we had talked about this, at least I had in my article this week, buy versus not buy. It's about 58% straight up. You kind of saw that earlier in this game. Chargers looked, even on a few injuries, they looked rested. And it's interesting that the Broncos, going back to 2021, now 0-6 straight up and against the spread the week after they play the Raiders. So maybe they get a little bit of a downturn there.
Who is Simi Fehoko?
Yeah.
Who is Devon Veal?
Yeah, I was going to read
Really?
Brandon's tweet. Brandon had a great tweet, which was just
Vele.
in an actual NFL game today that happened. Some dude's named Simi Fehoko and Devane Vele, and that's the way I'm going to pronounce it. And if it's not that way, I
Devon Vele.
apologize.
I got it for you.
There you
Pro
go.
Football Reference.
Thank you. So they led the teams in receiving in this one. These are two teams. You know what's interesting? The teams aren't great. The head coaches are. So it's interesting trying to watch both of them try to figure out their teams and get the most out of them. And seeing how the Chargers have played 2024 versus how they played under Staley and other head coaches, just kind of fascinating in the way that Harbaugh he's winning games, but he's winning games his way. They're allowing like 12, 13 points per game entering this week. They're running the ball a ton. He's not asking Herbert to do a lot. And when he traded all those receivers away, everyone was like, how is LA going to win? Well, this is how they're going to win.
I'm putting you on the spot. Chargers might be, I know this closed at 37.5. Are they 4-1 to the under?
I could check for you, but all I know is, it would make sense to the fact they were allowing like 12 points per game, best in the league entry. They were better than Pittsburgh this year. So
20.
Yeah, they were 4-0 to the under before this one, but then went over on this one.
22-10, 22-10, 26-3, 20-10, 17-10. 23-16, and they're 3-2. Chargers off the bye week. Jim Harbaugh gets done against Sean Payton. And we got two more because these guys didn't want to talk about the London game, I guess. It wasn't in our rundown, so I threw it in there at the end. Houston, New England. Drake May makes his NFL debut as a starting quarterback. 41-21 Houston. They cover 6.5, 7. Total goes way over. Brandon, I'm encouraged as a Patriots fan. I think they have a quarterback here. But speaking of Justin Herbert, this Drake May performance kind of reminded me of bad Chargers. Like, look, we have a guy. Our record might really stink, but we have something here, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think Drake May is the story here. The Texans go to 5-1, still feel underwhelming. It's kind of the same thing. Early down offense, not that great.
Speaking of luck rankings, good God, this team. This is Vikings 2 years ago. This team is getting so lucky. It's bugging me.
Yeah, they did not deserve their 41 here. They got some help along the way. I guess the defense earned what they did. We said I went with a half a unit on a Patriots cover and under here, which obviously went the exact other way. It's fine. It's supposed to go the other way. The point is, if there was going to be a Patriots cover, it's probably going to have to be low scoring. It wasn't.
Sure.
We said in that preview, Drake May means variance. Drake May meant variance. It turned out Drake May added some variance for better and for worse here. 3 touchdown passes. Some pretty nice dimes he dropped in. His very first one, right over the shoulder, right over the defender. A really nice throw. We get Demario Douglas into the end zone. First time in his career. That's fun. I think we had another guy I hadn't heard of, got into the end zone for his first touchdown of his career. Highest Patriots total of the season, 21. We hadn't broken 20 yet for any Patriots game under Jacoby Brissett. But 3 turnovers for Drake May. We got 2 interceptions. We got 4 sacks. It's 14-7 at the half. Kind of hanging around. Second play of the second half. Strip sack by Danielle Hunter. 21-7. Gets ugly from there. That's a rookie quarterback. You're making your first start. You're going to get the good and the bad. Yeah, the Patriots, I don't know, you're fine losing the game, right? Like this season, we know where it's headed. You get the high draft pick. Pretty good stuff to feel good about. And by the way, a little segue for you here, Brendan. Drake May, next Sunday. How about playing a rookie quarterback against the worst defense in the league right now, Jacksonville, when they go to London, where Jacksonville played today? I send it to you, Brendan.
London, Bears, Jaguars. I'm curious, both of your thoughts on this. Jaden Daniels is the deserving favorite, I think. Yes, right now for Offensive Rookie of the Year. Caleb Williams is now at plus 155 for Offensive Rookie of the Year. Jaden Daniels minus 190. Evan Abrams, Williams looked pretty good in this game. This was non-competitive. The Bears deliver 35-16. They cover the short number of 2. Total goes over.
Yeah, Jacksonville just is playing sloppy. And I think not only is it the sloppiness of the play from the entire team, but I think Trevor Lawrence has regressed. Like, I just see it in his game week to week. The passes are being overthrown. It just doesn't look clean, and it looks really hard in an offense that we thought would look much better. That's A. B, ETN's been terrible. Like often, like anytime you've been giving him the ball lately, and that's why they've been going to Tank Bigsby so much, is it just looks really bad. So I think overall, and Doug Peterson said this in his post-game press conference, which was, we've got to change culture currently. And what a really good place to change culture might be overseas in London.
Hire Belichick to play the Patriots in London.
I mean, maybe going over there and having this week. And listen, next week, it looks like the line is 6 right now for Jacksonville. I just couldn't imagine wanting to gamble on the spread in that game, because I don't know if I can really like pick a side, because I can't lay 6. And based off of what I saw today, it wouldn't shock me if May had more turnovers and looked good, but also gave the ball away too much to keep them in the game at some point. So to me, next week is a wait and see and just try to digest information.
Any thoughts here, Brandon?
Yeah, I mean, Caleb Williams, 4 touchdowns. Obviously, we just talked about Drake May. You're getting excited about the big plays for your rookie. Bears fans, you got a quarterback, 4 touchdowns. Just get excited. Be excited about your quarterback. It's only the 25th time in Chicago Bears history that a quarterback threw 4 touchdowns. Caleb Williams is now tied for the 6th most 4 touchdown passing games in Chicago Bears history. That's the story here. I do think, again, that's the thing we echoed last week, Caleb Williams looks like he's progressing. He is. He's looking much better, but he's also faced the bottom 3 defenses in the NFL the last 3 weeks as he's progressing. I gave you some love, Bears fans. Now's the time to fade the Bears. I had this spot circled on my calendar, waiting till after Carolina, after Jacksonville. Now is when I want the win total under. Before the season, we knew the Bears' first half of the season, 30th in DVOA, schedule-wise. Second half of the season, 4th. Here's how the schedule looks. They got the bye week now. Then we get Caleb Williams against 2 rookies, 2 of the next 3. We got Caleb against Jaden Daniels. Next game. There's the big rookie of the year showdown. It's in Washington. Caleb looks good. Washington's offense looks better. I think advantage Washington there. They'll certainly be favored. Cardinals at Arizona. That's not an easy one. Patriots, you get the Drake May matchup. After that, though, all 6 division games are still waiting. Against Green Bay, twice. Minnesota, twice. Detroit, twice. At San Francisco in there. Seattle in there. It is going to get
Detroit
for Chicago. Yeah. They get everything still. So this win total, they're going to be priced now like this is a true playoff contending team. I'm not there. This is a team that just played Carolina and Jacksonville. That's what they are. You should feel good. You should feel great. It looks good. You're 4-2. You're still the worst team in the division right now, pretty clearly, I think, on how things look going forward with a tough schedule. And I have to be fading the Bears going forward. I think this is the exact spot to do it.
Wow, that is fascinating. Yeah, you're right. I mean, after New England, it's division games in San Francisco and Seattle. Wow,
that's it.
Wow.
Yeah, this is the spot. I have a little list of like each week in the NFL, who's the team, where's the pivot in the schedule. This is it. This is the Chicago spot. You're not going to get any higher point on Chicago than off of these 2 games. And I think it's going to get a lot lower at some point going forward. So this is the spot to sell high on Chicago.
So yeah, so in Washington, the Commanders get Carolina next at home, laying 7.5. So that obviously in the preseason or the training camp, if you got the Caleb Williams, the Jaden Daniels plus 600 offensive rookie of the year, take that and ride. There's no value on Caleb right now, right?
If you want Caleb, certainly wait a week, because Jaden Daniels is going to put up 700 touchdowns on the Panthers next week, and Caleb's odds have to drop after that.
Okay. All right. Easy. Very good. All right. There you go. There's your slate breakdown. Let's do Monday Night Football. Buffalo and the Jets. Okay. Aaron Rodgers and the Jets, after firing Robert Saleh, they changed the offensive play caller. The number has slightly moved. The Jets are now just 1.5-point underdogs as opposed to 2.5. Totals at 40.5. Brandon, you already gave out Josh Allen to throw an interception in this game. What's the temperature of Bills and Jets Monday night?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I gave out Josh Allen interception. That's still my pick here. I'm not going to end up playing a side or total here. So the case for Josh Allen interception, last 2 games in New York were Allen nightmares. 5 sacks each game, 5 interceptions combined. He's had 6 picks the last 4 games against the Jets. He's had at least 3 straight in New York against the Jets. Looks windy here. Was banged up late, possible late concussion check against Houston. Just seems like to me a buy low spot on a Josh Allen interception. No interceptions yet this season. 5.5% turnover worthy throw rate, 29th in the NFL. That's the worst for Josh Allen since his rookie season. Hasn't been punished yet. I think that they do punish him here. Minus 120 is what I played at for the interception. Our interceptions guy, Gilles Gallant, would tell you usually minus 150 or longer last season. So I think we're getting a discount on the number here. I did sprinkle 2 picks plus 375. Man, on the side here, on the one hand, I love a good dead cat bounce, right? You love to take the team that fired their coach. They got rid of Nathaniel Hackett. Todd Downing doesn't really inspire a lot of confidence here. He did not do well in his 3 years leading an offense. Very inefficient, very run heavy. Run heavy is not the way to go against Buffalo here. I feel almost like the Jets dead cat bounce makes me as a better if I had to pick a side, maybe go counterintuitive and go back to the Bills here, who I just think are just playing better football right now. And so if I can kind of talk myself in either direction, that's usually a good signal I shouldn't play either one of those sides. The under or the total here has dropped 4 points. So if anything, I would have gone under, but we've now passed 44, 43, 41, and almost 40. Those are all key numbers. That's the key range. So I don't even play the under anymore either now that we've kind of missed this whole range. I'm going to sit out and just hope Josh Allen throws it to the Jets a couple times.
Seeing, Evan, the line change, the Jets team total has ticked to 20.5.
Sure.
Which, Brandon brings up kitchen sink. I would like to think this is sort of a kitchen sink spot for the Jets offensively. We say all that. This is for first place in the AFC East, this game. That was the attention after the firing of Saleh, like going into a game in which he's really handled his side of the ball. Offense hasn't pieced it together. You change the play caller. Even if the Jets don't win the game, if they're competent offensively, I think Aaron Rodgers will frame it. We're just fine. Because even if they lose the game, they're a game out.
I do feel like it's kind of ironic that you get the Rodgers home Monday Night Football game against the Bills for the division lead after week 1 last year. So this is a run back of hopefully a different scenario. I hope he comes out with the flag and all. I hope we just get it all over again. But I mean, you're going to hear it from other people, but yeah, you brought up the dead cat bounce in terms of the coaches. So 22-16 against the spread, teams after they fire their head coach in the next game. And, you would say 22-16, whatever. It's small margins there, but the 37% ATS for those teams entering the firing, and then you get 22-16 is where that comes into play. The thing I look at when I look at this matchup in the bet, and this was the funniest thing, is I honestly didn't see Brandon's bet. So I was looking at this game and trying to make a handicap and a few bets myself, and said to myself, Josh Allen interception, legitimately. So when you said that to me, and that he had bet that, I was laughing, but he hasn't thrown a pick in 7 straight games, but he does have 6 picks in 4 games versus the Jets. And prior to this 7-game stretch of no interceptions, he has interception in 9 straight road games and 11 of his last 12. So I do feel like Buffalo is probably the right side if I had to pick ATS, but I'm with Brandon. I think there's too many factors on both sides, but I think a Josh pick is something I would bet on. I also think an interesting bet I was looking at was rush attempts in this one. So Breece is at 13.5 and Braylon's at 7.5. I was tempted to go under 13.5 and over 7.5, and then look at Breece's over in receiving yards, which I see 22.5 at one book in the market, which is a little bit higher everywhere else. So those are the bets that I was looking at with this one. And then, we'll see if the Jets can get a win on primetime, 4-30 for Jets and Giants, as I mentioned off the top. So we will see how it goes. But I think we've talked about this before. Rodgers is also really good in Monday night. I feel like if I remember the stats, it's like 22 touchdowns, 3 interception area of something like that. So it's a good spot there. And the Jets did beat the Bills in this exact spot last year without Rodgers. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, all the trends light up. Rodgers at home, Rodgers home favorite, Rodgers Monday night. All those trends are Packers Rodgers. I don't know if I necessarily get to count those anymore. Small sample, but one more trend here to keep in mind. Brandon, we've tracked the post-London teams when they come back. You get a chance to take the bye week. The Jets turn it down. Now, they do get one extra day here Monday night. 14 teams have come back from London, played the next week without a bye. 12 out of the 14 either tied or trailed in the fourth quarter of the following game. So you can decide what to do with that. I don't have a bet attached to it this week. It's a small sample. My brain interprets that as these are tired teams acclimating back to stateside, coming back from not in their routine, different practices, and you get to the end of the game, you got tired legs, the opponent's getting a chance there. That's another reason why I'd be a little careful about going too much on the Jets here, beyond the fact that I've bet way too much on the Jets for futures and everything else this season already. I need nothing more. Thank you very much.
Bills are minus 118 first half line.
Yeah, I was going to say Bills to score first. There's probably a few ways to play that, but we can see how it goes.
Yeah, the Breece Hall receiving number is it's interesting because when they played Monday night against San Francisco, he was a big fact. Granted, we think they've developed their offensive playbook since then, but Breece Hall in the receiving game, just little dump offs. He was a factor in that game from a receiving standpoint. Okay. All right. Very good. Josh Allen to throw a pick. That's the takeaway I got from both of these
family
guys.
bet.
That looks
family
like
bet.
we're all on it independently.
All right. We'll take it home with the hot read from Brandon Anderson.
Yeah, so we went 1-1 this week. Thank you, God, to the Bengals getting us over the line at the end of the day there. Nearly, I thought we were going to have our first 0-2 hot read in almost a full calendar year, but we got the win. 6-3-1 now on the season on the hot read. These two picks are going to sound nearly identical. We're going back to the tried and true ugly under formula. Let's start Thursday night. Broncos Saints under 37.5. Guys, I'm so happy. I almost picked this on the hot read. It was 36.5, and I said, nope. What if Spencer Rattler looks kind of good? What if the Saints number looks good and it goes up a little bit? 37's a key number. What if we got past the number? Not because of Rattler. We got past the number now. We're 37.5. Grab it, the under, before it goes back under. Thursday night, ugly unders. You know how this thing goes. I don't really even think I need to tell you why you should bet against Bo Nix and Spencer Rattler doing stuff on Thursday night. The Saints defense got lit up, right? We talked about that. Almost 600 yards. That was Liam Cohen. That was a Bucs offense that's been very good. You know who's not that? The Broncos. The check down offense is not dropping 600 yards on the Saints defense here. Saints D's been pretty good this season. Top 8 DVOA entering today. Denver bottom 8 run and pass offensively. Like Evan said, no points till fourth quarter against the Chargers. Don't see a big number from them. Saints offense, their numbers look good. That was the old offense, right? That was the first 2 weeks. The offensive line's not great. Got to assume it's Rattler again here. Denver's defense has been really good. Denver's defense has been top 6 against the run and the pass. Frankly, still pretty good against the Chargers. They just couldn't get any points in that game. We mentioned Patrick Surtain might be out. That's not great for an under. Chris Olave might be out. So I kind of just call that a wash. I think you're just taking out the top guy on each side there. And then the trends on this one. Totals 38 or below that drop a lot from opening. This one's down 6 from the season look ahead. 61% to the under. Totals 37 or below, assuming we get there. I think this moves that direction. Since November 2019, 73% to the under. Thursday night totals 40 or below. That's why I love the Thursday night ugly unders. Since 2017, 20-7 to the under. 74%, even when the total is that low, by 6 points a game. So, you know what that means? Time for a mine shaft. There's no alt lines available yet, but get ready. Grab the under 37.5. Get ready for the mine shaft, like an under 30.5. Take it when you see it, because this number is going to drop. That's the first one, Brandon. Broncos, Saints, under 37.5.
Okay, and another under, another gross under.
Well, it's going to sound almost identical. We're staying in the night game. We're taking another under, and it's another under 37.5. It's Jets Steelers on Sunday night. We're just going to the very next primetime game, and we're taking another one only at one book. Make sure to shop. Make sure to get the 37.5. Again, we want the key number there. The Steelers scored 32 today, so that might give you a little bit of pause. It should not. They finished under 300 yards for the game. They got 32 points because the Raiders turned it over 3 times. Steelers had touchdown drives of 7, 30, and 33 yards. So this is not an offense that suddenly found itself. This is an offense that suddenly found the Raiders. It's going to be fine. They're playing the Jets. We know what these teams are, right? Defenses are good. Offenses are not good. Again, I don't need to really tell you why it's the under. We're just getting ahead of the line movement here. Pittsburgh's defense has been great. TJ Watt, probably the new DPOI leader in the clubhouse right now. Aaron Rodgers is not moving that well. That may not go that great. The Jets have been pretty committed to the run game, way too much. That's what Todd Downing wants to do. Pittsburgh's run defense, especially good. So that's not great on that side. Jets Bills, we just talked about it. That total dropped 4 points this week. That's where their direction this one's going to go is down. Since that opener Monday night, the Jets defense has allowed 13 points a game. They've been really good since that embarrassing opener. I think this is a defense game. I think this is a run the ball game. Both teams just want to run the football. So that's a speedy clock and probably another nice, easy Sunday night, hopefully for us next week on the podcast. Some numbers for you. Prime time unders outside of Thursday night. The last 5 years, 63% to the under. Unders 37 and below. We just mentioned that in the last one, 73%. Non-Monday night unders, 37 to 40 total range. The last 2 decades, 45, 21, and 2 to the under, 68%. There's a reason we keep playing these unders in this range. It's because the trends love them here. This is the 2 defenses that just line up for the under. 7, 3, and 1 combined so far to the under this season. We might get another one by Monday night when the Jets play. And a little bonus hot read for you. One last a half hot read, because you can't play it yet, but I want you to be ready to play when the line comes up. One more. Commanders. We're running back the Falcons bet we played this week against the Panthers. Give me the Commanders over 1.5 first half touchdowns, or if you don't have that, over 15.5 first half points against the Panthers. Evan, you mentioned this. The Panthers are scoring more early on. What you did mention is that the Panthers are allowing 24 points a game in the first half outside of their 1 win. 5 losses this season. They've allowed 3 touchdowns or more every single loss. In the first half, 3 touchdowns or more. Washington's offense is the real deal. They're going to put up points. Atlanta hit this today. Everyone else is hitting this today, except for that one kitchen sink spot for Carolina. This total is already rising. It went up 2 points since this morning. So I want you to be ready. It's not available yet, but when we start to get some of those lines, I'm not going to be able to give that to you on Friday because the line's going to have moved already too fast. So be ready. Get your bet. Commanders, something first half over. You want it.
Okay. I also find it beneficial that the Commanders defense, like holding Baltimore to 30 is actually not bad when you only lose by 7. But that defense is not very good, despite Dan Quinn being a
Yeah, go ahead. Andy Dalton, go ahead. Get on the scoreboard. Give us the ball back again. Let's get some more points.
Correct. That's my point, right?
Exactly.
You almost wanted to turn it to a shootout. And by the way, Aaron Rodgers, back-to-back primetime night spots. I mean, maybe that's why the darkness retreat was a thing. Like Tom Brady couldn't stay up late when he was 40+ doing these night games in Tampa. Well, maybe Aaron Rodgers is up for it, doing these night games in consecutive weeks. That's why you do darkness retreats, because you can stay up late and play football.
Listen, you got these under 37.5. It's time for our own darkness retreat. Like, make some plans, go apple picking, schedule a dinner. You can't watch every football game all season. You got to live a little bit. Just earn some money while the games are happening in the background and nobody's doing anything. Nobody would have missed the Bengals-Giants game tonight. This is what we're setting up for. That's what the Jets being in primetime back-to-back is giving us.
I respect that.
Brandon,
okay.
I put this in my week 1. So you talk about all those night games. I'll leave with this. So first 11 weeks, Jets had 6 night games. And that doesn't even include the London game. And I looked last 20 years, Jets 6 night games the first 11 weeks, the most of any team. So you keep seeing them in this game and that game and Thursday and here. it's a mess. And I think it's really difficult to get rhythm. An example like the Texans last year, 16 of 17 games were in the 1 o'clock slot.
Yep.
I think that helps.
Yeah. Here's my last question for both of you. We know I got my Aaron Rodgers MVP ticket, right? I got the 2 units down, the 25-1. He's cooked. He's not good. It's done. It's over. The Jets are not good. We got 2 primetime games here against pretty good looking defenses. Over under 0.5 Undertaker gifts. I post about Aaron Rodgers MVP tickets when he does some good thing anytime in the next 2 weeks.
Over.
The over is minus 500. It's
over.
coming. Just get ready for it.
You tried to marinate Panthers Island for a week and a half, and that was too much, for crying out loud. Very good. All right. We got to go. We got to get out of here. For a slate, we didn't think we'd have much to say. Here we are at 12:40 Eastern in the morning on Monday. Evan Abrams, our Director of Research and Media, look out for his primer over on the Action Network app, actionnetwork.com. Brandon Anderson joins. Which one of you is on the roundtable Tuesday?
It's Simon Hunter and I are on Tuesday this
Very
week.
good. There you go. Brandon Anderson, the NFL Roundtable episode Tuesday, midday Eastern time, Tuesday. And also his best bets will come out first thing Friday morning for week 7. For Evan, Brendan Glasheen, thanks for tuning in. The Action Network podcast, those of you watching on YouTube, thanks for being here. Please subscribe to our channel on YouTube. Please like the video as well. We greatly appreciate that. And for those of you listening, your 5-star ratings and reviews, wherever you listen to your podcasts, are greatly appreciated. We're back at it on this particular episode next Sunday night. Have a great week.